very friendly rendition of that is isolating language, the idea being that it tends to express its morphemes in isolation. So that's one type of language that there is, and it's by no means unusual. That kind of language is actually quite common in particularly the upper leftward half of Africa, very common in East and Southeast Asia. That is one way that a language might be very, very chary of prefixes and suffixes. Then there are languages which are called agglutinative languages. And as you could guess, that's because they agglutinate their morphemes. And Swahili is one of these. And so you can see that there's a morpheme that indicates the third person singular in the same way that we would have a separate pronoun for that, such as he, she, or it. And then you have a morpheme that indicates the present tense. And then you've got your verb right there, anataka. And all of that is one word. So the morphemes are agglutinated together rather than being expressed separately. Now, Swahili looks familiar to us because since we're used to morphemes being kludged together, we might think that English is an agglutinative language, or Spanish, or another language that we might be familiar with. But actually, English and European languages are a different type, and we call them fusional, and this is why. Because although it's not always apparent, when you think about it, a lot of our morphemes, our bound morphemes, actually mean two things at the same time. So, for example, in wants, so he wants, she wants, or it wants. The s signifies first the third person singular, and I think that's pretty apparent. But also, it signifies the present, because if we are talking about he, she, or it wanted in the past, then the past is indicated by ed. And so the s also indicates that we're dealing with the present tense as well as the third person singular. And so this morpheme covers both of those things at the same time. And that kind of double function is common in, for example, European languages. And so languages like that are called fusional languages. And so they bring things together to an even greater extent than agglutinative languages, which, compared to fusional languages, are kind of like the sort of person who doesn't want their meat to touch their peas or their rice to touch their corn or something like that. Swahili is very tidy. It's easy to see where the lines between morphemes are. In a language like English, many morphemes actually have two functions, and so things have come together even more from what we can think of as an initial state, such as Vietnamese, where everything is not only nicely subdividable, but actually separate. So we have that. Now, as you can imagine, there's no reason why English would necessarily be an extreme. It's actually that English is one intermediate step the most extreme example, actually, English is but an intermediate step upon what can be seen as a continuum of manifestations of morphemes. There are languages, and a lot of them, where a word is what we think of as a sentence. And what this means is that morphemes are crammed together into massive packages. You can think of these as very sticky languages. So, for example, take a look at this sentence from Chinook. Chinook is a Native American language. Washington and Oregon are its states, or I should say were. It is one of the great many that are no longer with us being passed on. However, a magnificent thing it was. And here, look at one word in it, just Inialuda. There it is. Now,